Hi, and welcome to Mobility Matters, a series of interviews highlighting the importance of mobility in Tarrant County.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm the president of an organization called the Tarrant Transit Alliance. We're a coalition of individuals and organizations who care about transit in Tarrant County. Welcome to the second interview of the Mobility Matters series. Our guest today is Bob Baulsir, the CEO of Trinity Metro. So I actually filmed this interview back on July 3rd, right when the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests were beginning. I admit that I failed to get this interview out because we've been pivoting as an organization. I'll talk a little bit more about what TTA is doing after the interview. I'm excited to finally share this conversation that I had with Bob, but I'd like to do a little introduction first. Before Bob worked for Trinity Metro, he actually had retired. We were lucky enough to get him specifically to work on TexRail. Then when former CEO Bob Baulsir decided to move on, Bob was the perfect choice to take on this role. Back in November, Bob was diagnosed with cancer, and he's continued to skillfully lead his team through his diagnosis and the pandemic. We wanted to know more about how the pandemic was affecting Trinity Metro and what was in the future for transit in Tarrant County. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Zollers. At the end of the interview, you'll also see a commercial by Zollers, but for now, I'd like to introduce Bob Baulsir. Hey there, Bob. For those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am the president and CEO of Trinity Metro. My situation was a bit unique because I retired as the president of another transit system. I came to Texas because I was excited about building TexRail. So at the point that they said, hey, we really think you'd be great to be the CEO, knew just the ins and outs enough to where I could just jump in and say, okay, this is where I think we need to go.
What were your priorities when you first started working as CEO for Trinity Metro?
Obviously, we wanted to provide more transportation. There's a big demand that's unmet in Tarrant County. And I say Tarrant County specifically because I wanted to make sure that we changed our philosophy so we were now a county agency instead of the Fort Worth Transit Authority. And then we need to have a better relationship, with the county. And I think we've done a lot of that. And the city of Fort Worth, we need to be partners with the city and let them know that we bring to them an opportunity for better economic development. And we can help change the city into a place that people want to live in, and then I think we can better people's lives with public transit. And we've got a great opportunity to do that here.
I totally agree that there's a huge opportunity right now. I want to shift a little bit to current events. There are protests that are happening nationally in response to the murder of George Floyd. Can you talk a little bit about your feelings about all this and how Trinity Metro is responding?
My wife and I had taken in another child that was of a different race, and I got to see firsthand how people are treated differently. And I got to tell you, it just bothered me so much. But to see George Floyd murdered, we need to change, and we can't deny anymore that needs to happen. We had the discussion about what happens if we're asked to transport protesters to jail, and we don't want to do that. I watched on the news the DART vehicles transporting passengers off the bridge. I also read that those vehicles were decommissioned and the police drove them, but still it was shown as DART taking protesters to jail. And that's not a good thing. And we certainly don't want to be a part of that and want to avoid it. So I'm hopeful that we're not put in that situation. And our police chief, who's done great things, will maintain this peaceful order and join hands with the protesters, and we come up with a solution.
A solution is certainly something that's needed. Okay, so now a little bit about the pandemic. How has Trinity Metro shifted to meet the needs of the drivers and riders?
We looked for ways to protect our employees and the passengers that ride our vehicles. We were one of the first ones to stop collecting fares and let folks board from the back door. We were one of the first to have the driver's barrier. We were fairly quick at procuring face masks, and the TTA hand sewed a bunch of them and donated them. We were just so happy to have all our partners in the public come out and help. And then we were kind of fortunate in the sense that somewhere in the past, somebody had the good sense to design our HVAC system. Obviously circulates the air in the bus, right? It has this very unique function where it kills 99% of the germs that come through it.
Wow, 99%? That's great. I know everything's a little uncertain right now, but are you working on anything that's going to push transit forward in our region?
Let me tell you what our plans are. Actually, today they're finishing up our reimagination plan, and we are going to present to the city of Fort Worth a plan for the first year of transit improvements in Fort Worth. We'll have this out, to the city and the public, probably the week of June 15th, because we're that close. We've been working on this for a while. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make our efforts just as efficient as they can be. So what we would see is on the lower ridership routes, a new vehicle, which is kind of a mid-sized vehicle, and annually we'd save about half of what we spend on a big bus. So what would we do with that savings? We would take that and repurpose it and put more service in places where we're not meeting demand. So it's not one of those things where we're going to put a bunch of new service out there and say, if we put it out, they'll come. That's not the way we're looking at it. We're looking at it to say, where is the unmet demand? They're already there. We've already got a big unmet demand, and we want to meet that. And then our planning folks with Christoph Spieler. Have you met Christoph Spieler?
I've seen him speak and have ordered his book.
He is amazing. He's like the national expert. Like I said, we have the best people. We have the right minds looking at this, people that have done this. So they're going to present this reimagined plan. We're going to repurpose some of our assets. We'll try to be more efficient on the lower ridership routes. With that savings, we'll redeploy that to places where we're not meeting the demand. And then on top of that, there's going to be a delta of what we think we can achieve in the first year, because it takes a while to deploy these services. And so there's going to be a request that we send to the city of Fort Worth, but it'll be very specific. And then, oh, by the way, we have become much more efficient at what we do and what we currently have. And the third thing is we are working really hard to get down to the near south side, which is kind of exciting. That gives us access to all of the major medical facilities and hospitals in the city of Fort Worth, plus all those businesses and residents that are down there. And we're going to do that with TexRail. And then, as you probably know, we're working on the initial planning for a BRT project that would go out Lancaster. So we almost touch Arlington, with that. So this will be a new type of service. So we would have permanent stations, probably along the center running islands along Lancaster. We will improve the streets, the sidewalks, and have a walkable community, and just do that whole conceptual improvement that we know we need to do for public transit. So we're starting to get into the conceptual design, and we need to put all that together to go out for bid. And then we'll have a lot of opportunity for public input. As we go through certain neighborhoods, we want folks to come out and talk to us. And maybe at some point we'll even get the Arlington folks to look at this and go, wow, that's kind of cool. How did we get to be part of that?
Speaking of that, we have so many communities that just aren't dense enough to really support a full transit line. What options are out there for those folks?
That leads us to something else that we just started. But we've partnered with Tarrant County and the city of Crowley, the Zip Zone. It started Monday out there in Crowley, and it runs a few hours, rush hour, you might say, in the morning and the afternoon. And they're accessible. We'll have a wheelchair accessible vehicle, low floor. It's a completely different way of offering public transportation for us. It's a different mode than what we're accustomed to. But we need to do that. We need to diversify our options and look for the best fit. It may not be a 60 or a 40-foot bus everywhere. We've been doing it up in Mercantile in that area for quite a while. But we take them back and forth to all those giant employment centers up there. And you're going to see a zip zone in the near South Side too, where we connect that whole district to all of our bus routes and the TNP with TexRail and the TRE. So what we've got 40,000 people a day, thereabouts, coming into work. That's going to be big. I mean, there's a lot of folks down there. And if I ride TexRail to the TNP and eventually to the news station behind Baylor Scott and White at Mistletoe, then I can take the zip zone and go to work if I work at one of the hospitals or anywhere. I want to get lunch, I can take the zip zone to lunch and back. Don't have to have my car. And then at the end of the day, ride back to the train station and go home. And we are going to put this in our new smartphone app, along with the Go Pass, the bike share program. But we're also going to put Lyft and Uber links on there because we think that they do offer some options that we might not. But I always go back to, as a guy that lives downtown, if I go to the airport during peak, it's going to cost me $40 on Lyft or Uber. Full fare on TexRail, it's $2.50. So we don't see them as competitors. At least I don't. And we kind of embrace the fact that they might, supplement first and last mile trips.
Personally, I'm really excited about the near South Side zip zones because I know, like, when I go to the doctors, I can hardly ever find a parking spot.
When we talk to the leaders at the hospitals, that's what we bring up. A lot of them, as you probably know, there's some of them, they're building new garages down there. They're spending about $30,000 as parking space to do that. Plus, they're giving up part of their footprint for parking, and they need that for buildings that provide medical care, not parking garages.
So the CARES Act has been a federal response to the pandemic. Has Trinity Metro received any of this funding?
We did receive $55 million in CARES Act funding. The majority of that, or all of that, goes to our expenses as we dealt with the coronavirus. I think about, what we spent, $150,000 on the first run on driver's barriers. We order masks and we're spending $65,000 an order to get them in. We're buying in bulk the hand sanitizer. And we're looking at, but we're trying to understand if we could afford it, the ability to put a portable hand sanitizer to dispense that on our transit vehicles. So at this point, and we're very early into this, I can tell you that we've drawn down, the first drawdown a week or so ago was a little over 10 million. And this week we were between 3 and 5. So the CARES Act money goes into keeping us whole and enabling us to do the right things for safety of our passengers and our employees and our equipment. And it's going to take all of that to do that. And really, we don't know how long this is going to last. In the months that we just passed through, we stand to lose in total on the fare collection revenue, $750,000 a month. And then our sales tax revenue is around $8 million. So when you start looking at that, it seems like 55 million is a lot, but it's not. And so far, we've kept everything intact. We've not furloughed or laid anybody off, and we're hoping not to do that.
That's a big deal.
It is, yes.
Okay, Bob. So, very last question. Do you think mobility matters?
Public transit is an important thing for folks. Transportation is important. I need healthcare. I need food. I need to get back and forth to school. It's an integral part of our lives in a civilized society, especially in urban area. Economically, it boosts our cities. It gets people back and forth to work. Medically, I can go to all my appointments, food shopping, all those things. It does the things we need outside of the home. It's just such a critical part to us as a society.
Couldn't agree with you more. Thank you so much for your time, Bob. We really appreciate it.
We appreciate all of the support from the TTA. There are so many great folks there, and thank you for supporting public transit. It's a good cause, and we really appreciate that.
At TTA, we believe that mobility matters too. Did you know that the UnitedWay of Tarrant County identified access to transit as one of the major issues facing our region? And we've been busy not only responding to the Black Lives Matter movement, but also encouraging the city of Fort Worth to support transit in next year's budget. On Juneteenth,
We sent out a letter about the role transit plays and the important discussions our nation is having on equity. We also shared this letter at a city council session. Then, in the first Fort Worth Juneteenth March, Trinity Metro unveiled their equity bus. On this bus were a lot of important people, including many council members. Seeing as it's so close to when the city makes important budgetary decisions, we thought it was important to thank these council members who rode on the bus. The very next day, Chad Edwards, who we interviewed last time, made a presentation to the city of Fort Worth about Transit Moves Fort Worth and included Trinity Metro's budget proposal. We are at a pivotal moment for transit and the city of Fort Worth, and we need citizens like you to help our leaders understand how incredibly important transit is for our future. Our region continues to lag behind its peers, and it's past time that Fort Worth City leadership invests in our community. Please make sure you are receiving TTA emails by going to tarranttransitalliance.org to stay afloat on actions you can take to support transit in our region right now. We need your help to make this happen. So sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social media. You can also invite us virtually to come and speak to one of your civic groups, church groups, neighborhood alliances. We'd love to talk to you. Before I let you go, I'd like to thank all of the patrons of the Tarrant Transit Alliance. These are the folks that really make it happen. If you'd like to join our coalition, you can do so by going to our website. We also now have a monthly patron option for as low as $10 a month. Finally, I'd like to hear a word from our sponsor, Hewitt Zollers.
For nearly 50 years, Hewitt Zollers has been serving the transportation, higher education, development, municipality, and manufacturing needs of North Texas. Hewitt Zollers is a full-service architectural and engineering firm with nearly 150 professionals based right here. When it comes to transportation, Hewitt Zollers is synonymous with progress and is proud to support the transportation needs of the city of Fort Worth. We were an integral partner with Trinity Metro on the success of the new Tex Rail line by designing the new Mahaffey Maintenance Facility for the care and upkeep of the trains. Hewitt Zollers is working closely with the city and Trinity Metro, reimagining the bus system to better serve the community. We're also excited to be chosen to design the renovation of 801 Grove Street, a historic building in downtown Fort Worth, for the new Trinity Metro headquarters. When it comes to developing communities, improving the fabric of our city, or planning its connectivity, Hewitt Zollers will be with you every step of the way.
Thanks for your support, Hewitt Zollers.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.